You are now listening to the Mel Gill Sports Podcast, a woman-run pod that is dedicated to bringing an alternate perspective to sports in all aspects.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Mel Gill Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Mel, and I'm finally back. It's been almost a month now since I recorded my last episode. I was sick with COVID for a bit, so my voice wasn't sounding all that good, so I wasn't able to just sit down and record an episode, but I'm back, and today is a very special episode with the wonderful and lovely Wendy Sparks, host of Courtside Moms and mother of Toronto Raptor Khem Birch. And I'm so excited for you guys to hear all the amazing things that she said today and just to really hear her story. So I hope you guys enjoy, and don't forget to follow the podcast on all social media at Mel Gill Sports. Welcome back to another episode of the Mel Gill Sports Podcast. Today I'm very grateful to be joined by such a kind and hardworking individual, host of the Courtside Moms Podcast and mother of Toronto Raptor Khem Birch. A huge warm welcome to the lovely Wendy Sparks. Thank you so much for joining me today, Wendy, and how are you doing?
First of all, thank you for having me, Mel. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I really am. And I am feeling wonderful, just living the dream. You know what? We got up this morning, did what we had to do. So I feel blessed that I can just continue and be me every day, all day.
That's wonderful. I'm so happy to get this chance to speak with you, even if it's in this virtual setting and after all our rescheduling, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely, as am I.
So jumping right into it, you've hosted your podcast, Courtside Moms, for the past 2 years, and you've had many different mothers on the show with lots of stories to tell. So I was wondering if you can take me through the process of starting the podcast and what made you want to start it, and just really tell me what this journey has been like for you.
I discovered a few years ago that there was a lack of info out there about the players and who they truly are. I mean, we know them, who they are on the court or who they are now, but where did it all begin? Like, who was there? How did they get to where they are? How did they execute it all? And I was surprised that there really wasn't a platform out there. I found there was a lot of videos or a lot of even movies, but it was really about them being a professional athlete. And I believe everybody has a story in life, and it's important to understand the journey. So for me, I was like, well, hold on a second. Someone needs to understand these players as people and not just athletes. And that, for me, is how Courtside Moms came about. I involved the mothers because I'm a mom, and I really wanted people to understand our stories with our children. And that is everything to me. As a mother, I'm like, wait, hold on a second. My son had this journey, but so did I as a mother. So I started to reach out to mothers and ask them their opinion. And the warmth I got from that was overwhelming, because they made me understand how unimportant they felt through the basketball process. And not for anything, it's just no one ever thought that a different opinion other than the players mattered. And then I reached out one day to a friend, and he and I were just having a conversation. And that's Kurt from Title League. And with Title League, they're the ones who actually helped me give birth to Courtside Moms, because I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I didn't know the first thing about a podcast. I just knew I should have one.
Wow, I think that's so beautiful, like just your whole reasoning behind the podcast. And I completely agree. That's kind of why I started mine, is like the athletes are not just who they are on the court. They bring so much off the court, and there's so much that people don't know. And I really like just your podcast. Like, it's so unique. Like, I haven't heard about any other podcast where it focuses on the mothers and just like the nurturing aspects and what they've done to help their children and support them through all this.
Yeah. It's a niche market, honestly. You know what I mean? But at the same time, we try to expand because it's not only for mothers. Really and truly, it's about people understanding the process of becoming a professional athlete. And that's really what it was. I didn't want to make it a cookie cutter kind of process where you keep asking the same questions, keep doing the same things. And you know what I mean? Like you have that chalkboard mentality and you just write things down and that's how you follow step 1, step 2, step 3. And that's not what it is. It really isn't. As when you hear through the mothers, some of their journeys were completely different, but yet our kids now are on the same platform. It's just really helping other parents understand the route it takes to become a professional athlete and to stay a professional athlete. And also for the fans. I mean, you love your players, but love him or her, because I do WNBA as well, for their journey and not just what they're doing today on the court. You know what I mean? Like love, if you're going to choose a player, love them from the day they were born up until now. To me, that's true fandom. Like I love certain players from the beginning because now that I'm friends with a lot of mothers, I ask a lot of questions and I'm like, wow, your son or daughter really did this and this is what you did. And to me, that's everything.
So it's pretty obvious that you put a lot of work into the show. And as a podcast host myself, I like to know the behind the scenes and the work that other hosts put into their show. So what is your process like when it comes to having a guest on? Like, how do you prepare and how does that preparation actually translate to when you're recording your episode?
Oh, I love that question. For for me, it's the contact that's the most important, and allowing the mother to feel very comfortable first and foremost. So I do a lot of referrals. Like, say if I do a show, then I'll speak to whoever I just finished the show with. I'm like, hey, were you comfortable with the show? Did you have fun? How did the show make you feel about sharing your journey? Because the first thing I want mothers to know is that our show is all about integrity. We're not about sharing, you know what I mean? Like the negative sides of certain stories. I couldn't care less about a lot of stories. I just want to know about your son, your daughter, and the process it took you guys to get your child to where they are today. So that's the first thing I have to do is make the mother feel comfortable and understand we're not tabloid. We're really about authenticity and the truth. Once that takes place through the referrals, sometimes I reach out to mothers, social media, however I can, phone calls, emails, you name it. We just really want to be able to reach as many mothers as we can every single week. And once I get that mother, I help them feel comfortable. I make them understand what the show is about, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. It's not live. So just talk. We're two moms sitting on a soapbox talking about our kids. Just talk. It's just Wendy and whoever, you know what I mean? And then if you're uncomfortable, just talk. We can edit it out after, or we can add things in after. And that happens because sometimes mothers are like, oh my goodness, I missed this. This is important. Or I should not have said that. And not for anything. It's just sometimes we're like, maybe you should leave that person's name out. Even though it was a bad part of the journey, that should be left out. So then we remove things. And it's only because we want the story to appeal to the public. We want them to understand the truth. But at the same time, we're not there to bash anybody. It really is about the journey. So once we get that all settled, then I invite them on to a Zoom, and then we record. For me, through those conversations I have with them, I'm writing down notes. I'm going online. I'm asking other mothers who know this mother, hey, what do you know about this person's son or the player or whatever. So I try to get as much information as I can so it can be as authentic as I can. And then I speak to the moms and say, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. Are you comfortable with that? And is there anything you want to talk about that I completely missed? I don't know everything. And that's how we put the episodes together, because we really want people to know really what happened to get so-and-so to the league.
I love how you put so much care and thought into just the preparation for your episode. And then once you actually do it, like, you don't hear that often that hosts actually just truly just care about who they're interviewing and just all that preparation. And I think it just makes your show that much more wonderful. So I, no problem. I imagine just this whole process of starting it has brought challenges for you. And what has been the biggest challenge for you since starting it? And has there been anything that surprised you or something that you didn't expect?
My personal challenge was fear at the beginning of not being able to convey these stories in ways that others would understand or even be interested in. I was wondering if I needed to become a journalist, you know what I mean, or something before becoming a podcaster or putting a podcast out there. But then I quickly learned that there was no special degree necessary for a mother to share her journey. You know what I mean? Like I was surprised how quickly I actually had the knack to do this. If you look at my first episode versus the episodes today, let me tell you, it is night and day. At the beginning, I was so scared. I didn't know what to ask. You know what I mean? I would ask a question and she would answer, like, oh my God, what do I say? Now I'm able to really pay attention, listen, and then ask a question based on her answer. I do prepare in advance, but I am ready. I'm more ready because now I understand how to get that story because I really was overthinking it. So that was my challenge at the beginning. Don't overthink the process. Just listen to what she's saying and answers. Like it's funny. I was calling them saying, it's just a conversation. It's just me and you. But then when I would do the interview, I'd be the one panicking, right?
Yes. That's me all the time.
I was like, oh my God. But no, now I'm actually like, okay, this is actually fun. And I absolutely love putting episodes together. And I do look forward to speaking to the mothers. And through that has developed such a nice sisterhood because we become friends. You know what I mean? Like I can text some of these moms. We call each other. Just what's up? What are you doing? How you doing? Oh, our sons are playing each other today. Or, you know what I mean? I was watching your daughter's game or I see this online. What's going on? So, and we are really supportive of each other. And that's really, really important. So that's another thing that I got out of doing the show. But yeah, to answer your question, one of the biggest challenges was me being able to convey the information enough that people would enjoy listening to it.
Right. Yeah. So for people who maybe haven't listened to Courtside Moms, which if you haven't, you definitely need to take a listen. You've probably like kind of already said what you want to say throughout this conversation already, but what is like the biggest thing you want them to know about you and your show?
I want people to know that first and foremost, I am a person that's very giving by nurture and I'm very authentic. This process has allowed me to give back in a way where I can give information that can help other parents. And it's authentic information. It's the truth. We don't make up these stories. This is not a script that's written. This is us telling you exactly what happened for us. So for me, I tell people my journey, I share my journey. And not to say it's going to be the same for them, but it's a possibility. And I think that's important because there's no real resource to be a parent. And then when you're thrown the mix of your kids becoming professional athletes, which is completely different. These are not, to become a professional athlete, you have to stand out. There's so many people in the world, and here you have just a few professional athletes. So now you're raising this person. Now you have to make sure that you know what you're doing. So for me, that is so, so, so important. And I want people to understand how I did it and how other people are doing it. And this is why I do what I do.
I imagine Khem was just so happy for you hearing you start this new project. And like, what does he think about Courtside Moms? What does he say about the show?
He is proud of what I've created. When I confirm a mom for an episode, it's funny. I would ask him, hey, do you know the player personally? And what do you know about this player? And Khem always shares. He's such a positive person. He always shares, yeah, mom, I met him during a tournament. You don't remember him being at the tournament? I'm like, no. or yeah, a couple of players that he played with. I was like, oh yeah. He was on your team. What are you talking about? And he and I talk a lot about what I do, how I do it, and the process. So he actually likes the show, and he always says to me, "Mom, only you would know so and so's mother." Like we laugh about it all the time when something happens at the game or whatever. I always laugh. Whose mom do I have to call today? He's like, bye. Yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
Yep.
Speaking of Khem, he grew up a huge Raptors fan, and I imagine the day that he signed with Toronto was a very special one for you and your family. What was it like for Khem and for you as a mother? Like, what emotions did you two feel? And just take me through that whole experience.
Oh, before or after the crying? We keep using the same word, surreal, but that's exactly what it was. I mean, he always wanted to play for Toronto, you know what I mean, as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And he loved the team growing up. He loves the league as a whole, but there's something special about being Canadian and playing for the only Canadian team in the league. So for me, I was blown away at his accomplishments from high school up until today. And then on top of that, you add the mixin of playing for the team that you just watched a lot as a kid. So for me, it's just everything came full circle. And I look at his journey now and I'm like, Khem, you've accomplished so much. And in this period of time that you've been playing professional basketball, look at all the things you've done. And that's so important. So I always want him to look back at everything. And now you're playing with the Raptors. I mean, oh my God, do you realize where you are at? And he and I just sat there with his dad and his stepmom and his brothers, and we all came to Toronto and his friends. And just together, we just reflected on everything. And we're like, wow, Khem, you did it. Like, congratulations to you, because he went through a lot. So for me, I have that sense of peace in my heart. I mean, it's nowhere near over his journey, right?
Yeah,
but
of course.
For right now, right? You know what I mean? I'm super proud of him. And each day, more and more, as he and I speak, I'm seeing him develop as this young man now. You know what I mean? And now he's really getting into his own and who he is. Because for me, don't forget, I see him differently than a lot of other people. Like, I'm his mother. So yeah, he's always a kid to me. Don't tell him I said that, though.
Of course I won't.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I agree. I think you have to take those moments sometimes to just reflect and see how far you've come. And I imagine as a mother, you're just so proud of him. And you also mentioned previously that Khem didn't actually like playing basketball initially. So could you tell us more about how he transformed from that and how he eventually grew to love it in playing?
Sure. Well, Khem grew up playing basketball, and he was the tallest kid, actually, of course, for his team. But he was very young then. He must have been about 6 or 7. And for the coaches, because Khem towered over everybody, it was just pass the ball to Khem. And Khem is a team player, and he did not like that. And I remember him at such a young age. He says, I don't want to do this anymore. He says, because they're not being fair to the other kids on the court, which surprised me. I was like, really? And I said, okay. So I put him in a different sport, and he played football and was absolutely fantastic. Mm-hmm. And one day he decided he no longer wanted to play football, and I was just livid. So then anyway, one day he was just playing around, and someone said, do you play basketball? And Khem said, no. And they says, you have beautiful coordination, and this is something that you should look into. And that's really how it all began. And Khem started to develop the love for basketball. He realized, like, I'm really talented at this. I actually know what I'm doing, and I can do this. And of course, his height made a difference, but it was really skill. Mm-hmm. And that was what I was like, wait a minute, you do have all these skills. And I think this is something that we should just see how we can develop and see where it can go. And that's exactly what I, as a parent, thought was a good idea. And I remember Khem saying to me when we used to get him in tournaments, because he played in Montreal, he played in Ottawa, and then he played for a team in Providence. And every time we would go to the tournaments, Khem would say, Mom, You're dragging me on this highway, and I'm going to get so mad at you if I do bad. And I was like, okay. And he never got mad at me. And I used to laugh. And we'd drive back. I'm like, you mad yet? No. And then he would go to sleep in the car and we would continue our 6-hour journey back home. And I thought it was hilarious. And now we look back at it and we reflect and we laugh and we're like, you didn't do bad, Khem. You actually are a good basketball player. So I'm glad that you stuck this through. And the love of basketball just got bigger and bigger. And he became his own. I think he's a little different than a lot of other players because the way he learned how to play basketball, like mentally, Khem wasn't that player that, yeah, I'm great. Yeah, I'm good. Some of the teams he played for, they all thought that they were the best thing since sliced bread, and they don't play basketball today. Where Khem was very humble, and he was like, you know what? I am a good player, but I don't know where this is going to go, and I'm going to try my best. So because he saw it that way, it made it better for him, and he was actually able to learn the sport because like when another mom said to me yesterday, she said, there's a science in this game. And it's so true. Yeah. And Khem understood that. So he was able to grab that science and ask the coaches, what do you need me to do? How do I do this? And how do I fit? And to me, I believe that's why he is successful at this today. And I'm so proud that he was actually able to own his skills and carry that on now to the Raptors.
And you could say that he hasn't had maybe the most traditional journey to the NBA like other players have had. You know, he was undrafted and then played in what was the D League at the time, and then a year each in Turkey, then Greece. But what would you say was the biggest challenge for him throughout this journey, and then also the biggest challenge for you being his mom and supporting him through this process?
The one thing I would say his journey gave him was strength. I mean, being a top player through high school, then AAU, then college, to going undrafted was humbling at best. Yeah. But it better prepared him for life as he learned that I guess you always have to work hard to get what you want in life, and nothing is ever promised. Yeah. So his challenge was to fight through the thoughts that he would never get to the NBA. To realizing that he could still live that dream, but to improve his game and stand out as he did. For me at that time, it was about understanding how he could get to the NBA by studying, staying involved, tapping into the necessary resources, and asking a lot of questions to learn the possibilities of Khem getting into the NBA, because that was what his end goal was. He played in Europe, as you know. He did enjoy that experience. I mean, it came with a lot. However, he still wanted to end up in the NBA. So for us, it was tough. Here, my son was on the other side of the world. I didn't get that opportunity to go see him in Turkey. I didn't get that opportunity to go see him in Greece. So for me, it was harder because don't forget, he left home, I think he was around 15, and he lived in the US. I was able to jump into a car and go if there was something. Now he's on the other side of the world. Well, we're not rich, so we didn't have that money. You know what I mean? I needed to stay at work. I couldn't afford at the time to go to Turkey and stay there for weeks and weeks on end. Like, you can't go for a weekend, right? So it was really trying to raise him now by FaceTime. What are you doing? Let me see your apartment. What is that? Who's that? What are they saying? And it was always, I don't know. Neither one of us spoke the language, so we had no idea. So it was scary. But I look at him now and I'm like, you actually fought through all that. Your mentality was beautiful through all of that. It was tough. And think of it, he did it by himself. He was on the other side of the world. You know what I mean? So alone at 18, 19. So, or maybe a little bit older, but still at the end of the day, if you're alone, period. Yes, you have your team, you have your teammates, but you don't have your family. And for us, family is everything. So, those challenges for me as a mom was really, really tough because I never wanted him to feel that I couldn't be there for him physically. One thing talking on the phone, but I don't know. to this day, I love being in the presence of my mom and my dad. So I can only imagine Khem on the other side of the world and not having us, you know, I mean, myself or his dad or his stepmom with him there. So that is something that I had a hard time dealing with. But I understood that this is what he needed to do and where he needed to be to get to the NBA and to the Raptors.
Yeah, no, I can't even imagine just being basically still a kid, and you're all the way across the world, and you don't have your mom with you right there, and also from your perspective, just not being able to physically be there for your son and just learning to support him from afar. I can't imagine how tough that might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, another time I imagine to be pretty stressful is when a player is on the trading block, and families are feeling a whole different range of emotions, and, they're not sure what's going to happen next. And I just wanted to hear your opinion on this, and how difficult would you say this is for NBA families? Is it more excitement or more anxiety?
I would say it depends on the family and the player. I mean, some players feel differently about trades, right? So
Mm-hmm.
some really don't want it because they feel no, sorry, some really want it because they feel held back. So they ask for trades and they say, listen, you got to get me out of here because you're not helping my future. And I get that because understand for these players, they want to stay in the league as long as they can. While you have some others that are completely shocked because they're like, I gave you all I can, and yet I'm sent packing. So it's really not easy. I mean, I would think it could be more difficult for players who have families with kids and wives, and you have to make that decision. Do I sell my home if I'm traded? Do my kids change schools? Does my wife have to change her job? So there's so many different elements out there. And then here on the flip side, you have other players that are, listen, I'm just here to roll with the punches and see what happens. If I'm traded, where am I going next? So the stress for me, in my opinion, is so different from player to player, and it depends on their situation.
Khem has previously mentioned that he never looks at box scores or focuses too much on an individual's raw numbers. What do you think about what he brings to this Raptor squad and the impact that he may have that can't necessarily be recognized by looking at a stat sheet?
Him, to me, is an unselfish player.
Mm-hmm.
He brings a mentality that I feel is important to any roster, as he is about the team.
Mm-hmm.
And this goes back to what I was saying when he was 6 and he first played, right? It's all
Yeah.
about the team. So his role is to contribute to the W and not to unilaterally try that all by himself. So he is seasoned. He has a lot of experience. And he's blessed because he was able to gain that experience from playing different circuits and playing overseas. So that experience brings more than just points to each game because I think he understands the process. So in my opinion, that's great for the Raptors because here you have this unselfish guy that is like, listen, there's 15 of us on this roster, and let's get this W together. It's not just about Khem Birch. So I'm not necessarily only there to worry about putting up 36 points. You know what I mean? That's not who he is. He's a defender, and you know what I mean? And he does what he can. If he's not selfish. So if he's under the rim and he can't get it, he's passing the ball out. It's as simple as that. He's not about, oh, it's just me. I'm here. This is my moment. I want to shine. Khem's like, listen, get those buckets any way we can collectively, and let's move on and win this game and live our lives. And that to me is who Khem is.
Yeah, and that leads right into my next question. He's proven himself to be that team first guy, and someone who doesn't necessarily focus on the personal accolades, but someone who prioritizes winning truly and what's best for the team. So, do you think the league would benefit from having more guys with a similar attitude and approach to the game like Kem's?
Oh, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I think having players like Khem can build a great chemistry for an NBA.
Chemistry.
Yep. For any NBA team, as he understands his role and he understands everybody on the team has role,
Mm-hmm.
and he's able to easily adapt to a team's culture. So players like him can help a team go far, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that we should see more of that in the NBA. And just he's had an impact on Canada basketball. And in recent years, we've seen such a huge surge of Canadian talent in basketball too, especially in Montreal, like
Mhm.
Khem and Chris Boucher and Lou Dort. And what type of impact do you think Khem and these guys have on Canada basketball and the future generation of kids watching him play?
Canada has so much talent
Mm-hmm.
that was underrated at one point, but all that is changing. I think playing for their country is an honor, and he wants Canadian ball players to know that a humble guy like him can represent. So can they. For Khem, he's been playing for Team Canada for years. I think he missed it just this time last year, and that was probably I think the only time since he's been playing basketball that he didn't play for the country. But for him, there's so much that he can bring. He can bring that talent. He can showcase that talent to the world. This is the stage where the world sees, hey, we're Canadians and Canadians know how to play. So I think that's such a big impact because there's so many amateur players out there that want to be able to represent the country or play. And who doesn't want to play in the Olympics one day, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think that just the fact that he's out there and trying to help do what he has to do for Canada, I think that says it speaks a lot to the other players out there that one day want to be able to play on this platform. And it's not only necessarily about NBA or G League or Europe, but I mean, when you play for your country, that's a big stage as well. So I think just the fact that he's grinded for years and he always played for Canada and he was always willing to play for Canada, I think to me that's an impact. Even more than just saying, hey, I've flown all over the world and played all over the world. I think just the fact that he shows his love for Canada is enough for a lot of Canadian players to say, you know what, I want to do that too one day.
Yeah, and I think it's really lovely, like just being a fan growing up and you're able to see these players who just rep their own country, and I think it just makes it that much more enjoyable to watch
Yeah,
them. Yeah.
absolutely.
And someone who's had an impact on Canada basketball who isn't Canadian, but Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
And if you're a Raptors fan, you definitely know his mom and your good friend, the lovely Marie Holloway. And she's known online for the way that she interacted with Raptors Twitter and just how kind she is. And after Kyle's departure, I guess you could say she passed the torch on to you to be the new mom of Raptors Twitter. So I want to know, what has your experience with the fan base been like in the past few months, and what do you have to say about what you bring to Raptors Twitter?
First, this is the first I like to say this is the first time I'm really interacting a lot with fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I absolutely love it because it wasn't like that before. So I love the Raptors fan base. I love how they are so real
Mm-hmm.
and they're so supportive to their team. I mean, I admit I love interacting with them, talking to them, whether it be in Twitter. A few of them came up to me at the actual game, which was surprising to me. I was like, oh my
Yep,
God,
I saw that.
yeah. I'm like, am I screaming too loud? How do they know? But you know what? It's nothing but love. And for me, I love the familyism of the whole thing. So being on Twitter when I'm putting out a comment and then they'll reply, hey, Wendy. Some people even defend me, which was funny because I made a comment a long time ago and someone defended me and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say that again. Although I wasn't bad, but it was just funny. So,
Yeah.
so yeah. I'm like, thank you for protecting me because I am the next girl I am. But spending time with them is absolutely amazing. I was afraid at first. I don't tweet a lot. What am I supposed to say? Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to say. Like, but just being there during game time is amazing for me to the point where I feel guilty when there is a game and I don't. I don't tweet sometimes. I missed a game a few days ago and I was like, oh my God, why didn't I say something? laughing. And what do I say? But I just want them all to know that I love, love, love them. I thank them for being so sweet. And, they were asking a lot of questions about Khem. When is he getting back? How's his knee doing? And to me, that's a real fan. And those are real, going back to what I was saying before, authentic people that actually care about the player and not just care about always winning. Like these people really ask me questions like, hey, how's Khem knee? What's he doing? What's the doctor say? I'm like, what does the doctor say? But it's true. And I have people sending me, wait, he should go to this doctor. And people actually research, send me information.
Wow.
And I laugh about it. I'm like, thank you. And I send it to Khem. Khem so-and-so said you should go here. Do this for your. He's like, who gave this to you?
Who is talking to you?
Yeah, I'm like a fan, thank you. And he's like, Ma, you have your own fans. It's funny. But like, no, they're Khem Birch fans. They just want you to get better. So for me, I just love, like I said, the back and forth I share with them because they're there to help. And it's not only about the players getting that W, it's about the fans showing how much they love and respect the players and moving the team forward. So I bless them all and I love spending time with them. And I do promise to get better at tweeting. I do. I tell Marie all the time, I'm like, Marie, what did you say?
Goes through all her old tweets. What did she tweet during the game?
First of all, I had to find old tweets. I wasn't, okay, let me embarrass myself and say, at one point I would tweet something and then I couldn't find it for like 5 days. I'm like, where did I put that? Now I'm actually pretty good, but it took me a minute. So I couldn't go through her whole stuff because I couldn't find it. But now I laugh at it and I'm like, okay, Wendy, do better. But I know the fans know that I'm there all in love and it's just fun. And no matter where I'm at, I have to watch the games. I could be at the airport and that is so true. There's so many times I've been at the airport and I'm sitting there watching it from restaurant to restaurant in the airports or from screen to screen. I've asked people to turn on screens. Oh yeah. But I'm always there. So I guess I should share that more on my Twitter feed to let people know I'm there. I promise I'm there. I have to make Marie proud too. So
well, I just wanted to say that we are so lucky to have you and we were lucky to have Marie, but we're so happy to have you there and you can tell just how people have embraced you so quickly.
Yes, thank you.
So just one last question, Wendy. You've always displayed this unwavering amount of support for your children and I think most people would agree, especially on Raptors Twitter, that you're the perfect mom, especially to an athlete, and how have you managed to do this? Was it by trial and error or has being a mom just come natural to you?
I would say both. There is no manual to being a parent, so it all came natural, but I learned as I went along. So yes, there was trial and error. My boys are my everything to me. So I always had to do what I had to do to be at the top of my game and the errors as you go along. My kids, when they wanted to play sports, I had to back them because this is what they wanted to do. I made sure that for me, I did my role because everybody had a role. So I would tell them, listen, I'm the adult in this. I'm going to help you, but you have to do what you have to do as well. So if you want to play professional basketball, you want to play football, that's fine. You do your role and I'm going to do mine. And there was a lot of trial and error. There was a lot of, oh, wait, that's the wrong person I should speak to. Or that was the right person I did not speak to. So it was a lot of back and forth, but for me, I made sure that my kids understood what I was doing though. I don't believe in that. I'm your mother, you do as I tell you, and you don't need to know. For me, keeping my kids in the dark was not good. Khem knew what I did from the beginning to the end, and we were able to talk about it. My other son, when he was playing football, we spoke about everything from beginning to end. Because he has to learn one day, he has to teach somebody one day, and plus he needs to understand how he got where he's at. And for me, that's really, really, really paramount that my kids can look back and say, well, hold on a second, this is what we did from the beginning. I don't think you can ask something to Khem and say, well, how did you get here playing basketball? I don't think Khem would ever say, I don't know what my mother did, because I made sure that he was always included. So for a parent, or I should say for parenting, I think that's really important. I became a mother when I was young. I was 19 when I had Khem. So I feel that I had a lot of energy to really do differently. I came from a different generation, to say, obviously from my parents, obviously, so the way of thinking was different. So I was able to get up and go and say, okay, you know what, I'm going to look online and see, or I'm going to get in my car and drive, because internet wasn't that popular at the beginning. I got in my car and drove miles and miles, hundreds of miles, you know what I mean? Because I had to figure this out for him. And I was like, hey, Khem, get in the car, we're going. And we would do it. So that's how I learned how to raise a professional athlete, because I wanted to really feel everything. I didn't want to just believe somebody because they said something. Because I did have some people that say, oh, no, Khem can't go to this college. No, Khem shouldn't go there. And that wasn't true. And I learned that some people had different agendas for my kids, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted Khem's agenda to, you know what I mean, to come through. So it was important for us that even if we failed at what we did and not what other people said that we should do. And that's how it's been for Khem. I wouldn't change anything for his path. I would not. There's so much, but I'm blessed that some of the decisions that I made with him has helped him to where he is now. And I think he would say the same. So I look at all parents and I'm like, do what you have to do, because your kids do need your support, but let them understand what it is.
Yeah. No, that's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Wendy, I just wanted to thank you so much for joining me today and just telling your story and your experiences. And it's truly been so lovely to speak with you. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you, Mel. You're beautiful. Thank you for having me on. Thank you for thinking of me. I really, really appreciate it, because it's important that our stories are heard. And I love your platform because, again, you're telling stories. And this is important. I mean, we live in a different type of world now, and podcasting is important. So I look at your content and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So you're teaching me
Thank you.
podcasting and different stuff. You really are. So I thank you for giving me this opportunity to explain what my journey is, as well as I'm learning your journey at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, you're always telling other people's stories. So I was like, you know what? I have to message Wendy. Have to tell your story.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Mel Gill Sports Podcast. Don't forget to follow on all social media at Mel Gill Sports Pod.